This is La Scala d'Oro, the gold staircase. It gets its name from the use of gold gilding. One of the few things that you can take a video of here. This is the next floor up. Reminds me of that Delft, China. And even the most important of visitors had to climb these stairs. Another look at the first floor. These 4 horses were brought here from Constantinople after 1204, Fourth Crusade sacking of Christian Constantinople. As Rick Steve's guide points out, another one of the low points in Roman Catholic Church history. Napoleon then took them to, I presume, Paris, and then they were brought back after Napoleon's demise. Believe it or not, this Colossus was built as the Doge's private chapel in about 10,000 or 1007, I think. And it was only in the 400 years later that it was given over to the Church of Venice. One of these two mosaics represents the arrival of St. Mark's bones into Venice. They were in fact stolen by Venetians from Alexandria, Egypt, and theoretically are ensconced within this church. If you believe that, of course, you must believe the Catholic Church at that time, assuming you believe it at any time. These are impressive mosaics, if only when you understand that all of it is made up of little pieces of stone. Some reworked, some just naturally cut. Now, if you want an example of the absurdity of the way Italians figure things out for tourists, because they don't give a damn, is when you want to put your bag somewhere, you don't put it inside the church, you don't put it inside here. You walk over onto this street, you don't go in there, you go down here somewhere, and the opposite side is a street. And in that street somewhere, one of the doors, on the right I think he said, is where you can put your... It's a little bit more intimate view than the tourists who don't buy the $4 ticket extra to get up to the top here of the Basilica. This is the Doge's palace. We're now looking right down the face of it. Off to the right there, you can just barely make out San Giorgio Maggiore Church. I'm not exactly sure what that building is. I could look at my map. I don't. Nor do I know what this old looking building is. Except that it's the base of this tower, which is quite visible from most of Venice if you can get up high enough to see beyond the buildings. Now we'll take a closer look at these statues. This winged lion is the icon or symbol of Venice. And this, I believe, is a warrior who was killed in the Eastern Mediterranean, like Egypt, Palestine, someplace like that, and became a saint as a result of his martyrdom. And just poking out there from the left side is San Giorgio Maggiore Church. Now here you get a sense of how close to the water line these buildings are. So like last week when they had the winds blow across the Mediterranean and push the water up, it really does flood these areas relatively easily, and I think fairly high, although I haven't gotten a definitive figure as to how deep the water was. Napoleon was said to have said that this was the most beautiful waiting room in all of Europe. It apparently is one of the most impressive plazas in all of Europe. Another view of the clock tower there. Had we been here at a right time, whatever that is, we could see the two very naked and very cold men bang on that bell. Here a view down the face of the top of the basilica, including the copies of the four horses. Here's a close-up view, and I'll go slowly, of a mosaic. Now one of the things you notice is that it, of course, is very medieval with the gold in the background. Everything floated in gold. There was no connection between heaven and earth, nor the characters of heaven and the characters of earth. But also you'll notice that no matter where I stand, the gold reflects a lot of light, like sparkles almost, in part because the alignment horizontally are not precise. In other words, if you laid this thing flat, each piece would not be flat. And as a consequence, as you move around, the light flickers off one versus another. Let's get in a little bit closer so we'll have some record of how precise and how small, at least, these pieces are in order to illustrate color and so forth. Now, design seemed relatively straightforward. Where it gets tricky, I would imagine, is when you're talking about characters here. Difficult to show emotion and that sort of thing that art would show, but this gives an idea of how characters are done. You would think that those faces were painted. I don't know if they are. They just might be very thin pieces of stone, like the outlining of Jesus in Mary's arm. Here an example of the deposition only done in mosaic. It's interesting, the Christ looks white, or whited out, or washed out. But I'm not sure that's intentional, or aging, or... One of the things that's structurally impressive about cathedrals is that without our modern materials and strategies and science, that they were able to pile so much rock, heavy rock, on top of itself and keep it standing over all this time. Certainly there was engineering here of some sort, whether it was Brunelleschi's or the intuitiveness of others, don't know.